is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
Good afternoon, 2:04 the time. Glad you're along. Man, we got a ton of stuff to get to. First of all, we have a special phone-in line. All of you currently at 2:04 Central Time, currently in blackface. Our blackface line is 1-800-288-WBAP. Everybody else, 1-800-288-9227. By the way, before I go too far, did you hear about this kid that's suing his parents? He's like 27, 28 years old. He says he was not asked to be born. His parents did not get consent from him before he was born. Therefore, they are responsible for supporting him the rest of his life. Now, he's an Indian. Not an Elizabeth Warren Native American Indian, a 7-Eleven kind of Indian. So he says, no, I shouldn't have to work a day in my life. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not hip on that cultural stuff, but evidently your kids can sue you now because you didn't get consent from them before you birthed them. Okay. Yeah, but we got to get into a lot of stuff here. Wait, here we go. Yes, Alex. I'd like $5.7 billion for a wall, please. What is border security with no government shutdown? That's right. I won the whole thing right there. Nancy Pelosi says there will be no government shutdown. She says the president and all the folks debating right now will come to an agreement, evidently by tomorrow. So there you go. All this back and forth and teeth gnashing just was unnecessary, I get. But before we do anything else, and I'm going to go to Mike. Mike, hang on just a second. A lot of people call in before I even start the show, and that's fine. You want to get your place in line. That's no problem there. Should we be judging by today's standards people and their behavior from 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago? And of course, I'm talking about, do you hear that? Do you hear that? Listen, sit very still. Listen. You hear that? That's the state of Virginia collapsing in on itself. The governor, the lieutenant governor, and now I guess the guy that's third in line, all of them, the governor, well, yes, I was in blackface 40 years ago in a college yearbook. And then, of course, the lieutenant governor is going, all right, that's a cool. Well, they're both Democrats. Now he's being accused of sexual harassment, #MeToo. And so you just normally go to the third guy in line. Whoops, yeah, he was in blackface too. What, was there, at some point in time, was there a special state holiday in Virginia where everyone was required to be in blackface? Was that it? Before you get too high and mighty. Now, first of all, they're both Democrats. So as far as I'm concerned, they can hit the bricks tomorrow. But then it brings up the bigger issue. Being in blackface, for whatever reason, now whether you're trying to emulate Michael Jackson or grabbing your crotch or doing a dance thing or whatever it is, are we going to judge people today, in 2019, for something they did 40, 50, 60 years ago by today's standards? See, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, societies evolve, they progress, people become more intelligent, hopefully, more sensitive to certain things. I mean, nothing is static, right? It moves. Let me give you a couple of names. I don't even have time in a 3-hour show to list them all, and I wouldn't, it's just bad radio. But a list of entertainers that have performed in blackface makeup, whether by today's standard in an overtly racist or comic minstrel role, or a satire or historical depiction. Roy Acuff, that's before my time. Eddie Albert, Fatty Arbuckle, again before my time. Harold Allen, Louis Armstrong, which is odd because he's already black, right? But he put on blackface to play a Zulu king during New Orleans Mardi Gras. Desi Arnaz in I Love Lucy. Lucy Goes to the Hospital. Yeah, there you go. Fred Astaire, the dancer in Swing Time. Gene Autry, Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. I mean, it just goes. Ethel Barrymore, Billy Barty, Noah Berry, Ed Begley. Remember him? In Vaudeville. Jack Benny, The Meanest Man in the World. That was the name of that. Was 1940-something. Milton Berle, of course, he was always in blackface. God, it just goes on and on and on. There's no way I could list them all. None. You just look at this and you go, well, remember Ted Danson in the Friars Club, the roast of his, who was he dating? Nut job, dreadlocks, Whoopi Goldberg, that's right. And of course he got Sammy Davis Jr., again, a black guy, but he was in blackface for a skit. George Washington Dixon, Robert Downey Jr., remember that movie Tropic Thunder? Really piece of crap movie, but he was in blackface for that. Gosh, it just, the list, honest to goodness, there must be thousands on this list. Thousands. The Marx Brothers, not a big Marx Brothers fan, but the Marx Brothers, I couldn't even Bill Murray. Now, what am I to think that all of those, I mean, literally, I have thousands of people listed here. Am I to think, they're racist? Yeah, their white robes are hanging up in the closet just waiting for an excuse. Today's standards in 2019, because of, we're so hypersensitive and politically correct, are much different than they were 40 or 50 years ago. Now, I just assume Virginia governor resign. And the lieutenant governor, he's a Democrat too. His deal's a little different. Evidently, he has hired the same defense attorney that Kavanaugh had, and his accuser has hired the same, well, it's just an incestuous little circle. But my question is much larger than these individual cases, all right? Should we be judging people for their actions no, wait, hang on. Before you said, Rick, you just racist. Hang on. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, if it's, obviously in a skit or some stupid college thing, I mean, that's one thing. Now, if they're out there burning crosses in their neighbors' backyards, that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different deal. If you're the grand poobah of, wizardry or whatever the thing is, I don't know. That's obviously racist in nature, isn't it? I mean, we should be smart enough to determine one thing from another. Should we be judging people for their past behaviors? And I'm talking 40s, 50s, 60 years ago. Should we be judging them by 2019 standards? Yes or no? All right, 2:17 the time. By the way, after we come back from every break, for the next hour or so, I'm going to give you a list of people that have appeared in blackface. Just so if you're taking copious notes, you can have that handy. When the neighbors come over and the family and friends and you get together for the big blackface discussion. Yeah, the state of Virginia, I don't know who gets to be governor now. What do they put all their names in a bowl and pick from there? Governor can't do that, blackface. Lieutenant governor can't do that. #MeToo. Sexual allegation. Okay, who's third in line? Nope, sorry, he was in blackface too. Remember Janet Leigh in Birds? Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds? Great movie. I love that movie. I was really little, but I remember seeing it at drive-in. Yeah, she appeared in blackface. Gene Kelly. And of course, these people are older. You ever wonder why Jimmy Kimmel hasn't brought up what's going on in Virginia? That's because Jimmy Kimmel, he was in blackface impersonating Karl Malone and Oprah Winfrey on The Man Show. Who else? Just somebody else that, there are literally thousands and thousands of people. Dean Martin in Ocean's 11, remember that? That's before my time, but I've seen the movie. The Marx Brothers. A lot of you like the Marx Brothers. They appeared in blackface. A Day at the Races. Who else? Oh, God. Well, I'll get to some for you. There's just too many. It's like everybody that was in the movies in the 40s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even into the 60s, appeared in blackface at some point. Am I to believe that they're all racist? They're all jackbooted, burr-headed, three-toothed idiots, looking for the grand wizardry. I'm sorry, I don't know all the KKK terminology, but no, I don't think so. Remember Roddy Piper, the wrestling guy? Remember him? Yeah. He appeared in blackface for the World Wrestling Federation. Remember Different Strokes? Who can forget Different Strokes? Remember Dana Plato? She appeared in blackface. Okay, let me get to your calls. All I'm asking is this. Now, they're Democrats, and goofy Democrats at that. Wouldn't hurt my heart at all if they were to pound sand tomorrow. But now, why should they? Everybody's guilty. Why not just hang in there? Should we be judging by 2019 standards and sensitivities something that occurred 40, 50, 60 years ago? Yes, and I'm not talking about sexual assault. I'm talking about something that changes with political correctness sensitivity. Like, he said y'all. That must mean that's not a colloquialism. He was trying to emulate a black person. Oh, come on. Blackface. You need to step down as governor of the state of Virginia, because 40 years ago, when you were a stupid college kid, I think it was med school, though, wasn't it? Yeah, that's nothing to mess around with. You appeared in blackface. Therefore, you must be the Grand Wizard of Fifeville, or whatever it is. Mike in Bridgeport. Mike, thank you for waiting. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. A long-time listener, and thank you for being such a great patriot.
Well, thank you.
I agree totally with what you're saying, and I think the Democratic Party now, they have no substance, no policies, and the only thing they can do is be offended or victimized. So now they're having to come up with all new avenues to fulfill their victimhood status because they have nothing else.
I'm not talking, by the way, I'll save that for I'm going to give you a list of people that have appeared in blackface when we come back from every break. I'm not talking about now. A bunch of politicians going out for, some political organization appearing in blackface. Mammy, how I love you, how I love you. That'd probably be a little much. Probably a little insensitive. But something that happened 40, 50, 60 years ago, that's why we call it history.
That's right. You learn from it. And back then, it was just, like you're saying, comedy. That's what laughs. But now the Democrats, they have no comedic bone. It has to be offensive. Everything has to be race-related or divisional politics.
Exactly. You're absolutely point on. Can you have, I never understood. I was a little bitty kid, elementary school. And remember the old black and white movies that come on Saturday afternoon? Al Jolson. And that's where I got that mammy thing. He would come out. He was a very famous actor, and he was a singer, and he always sang in blackface. Now, I don't know why. I wasn't born then. Maybe it's because blacks weren't looked at as viable in entertainment. I don't know. I have no idea. But this guy was huge. Now, what are we supposed to do? Supposed to go back to his family and sue him for everything they've got? Take the man's, and I don't even know if he had any family or not. But do you see what I'm saying? I don't see how we can judge people in 2019 for something that happened 40, 50, 60 years ago. Sensibilities were different. Sensitivities were different. Certainly political correctness was different. I'm not saying, it was a good thing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying at the time, perhaps we had not progressed intellectually, as a society. We keep evolving, do we not? It's not static. We don't get to one place, okay, this is good, and we just stay there from then on. We don't do that. At least I hope we don't. Good call. Very good call, Mike. I appreciate it. Jason in Flower Mound. Jason, thanks for waiting. Hi.
Hey, Rick, you know what's kind of overlooked in this, the whole argument? It starts with the minstrel shows, which were actually a celebration of black music, black customs, black stylings that weren't allowed on a segregated white stage. So, in essence, the blacks were being brought to the stage for the American public by proxy. Now, the reason that some of these performers also did blackface or whatever, especially in the 20s and 30s and a little bit forward, because there was Hollywood was segregated. Okay, and so there's some inside jokes on some of this stuff where they're poking fun at Hollywood and the censors and other people by saying, you know, we're having to perform as black people because you're not letting black people in the mainstream.
Well, so basically you're saying we're doing the blacks a favor.
Well, no, to a certain extent. Some of it was honoring. Now, I mean, it's a very complex question because not all the people
see,
who put blackface on were doing it with it.
Exactly, Jason, that's my point. I mean, we can't in 2019 say, oh, we were doing the black community a favor by dressing up like black people. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You're right, it's very complex. But it also was at a time, well, what, in the 40s or 50s, the nation, I mean, my God, they were selling asbestos to housewives as a food preservative in the 50s. Yeah, we've progressed a little bit since then. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense to me. None. Why we sit here all high and mighty, yes, amen, it's 2019, I'm so intelligent. Now, what they did in 1940 or 1950 or it's an abomination. Well, it may be according to our standards now, but it wasn't then, so how do we judge them? All right, 2:32 the time, as promised. Coming back out of every break, I'm going to give you a short list of people that have appeared in blackface because, you know, they're just so racist, right? And I figured, well, you know, give you a little something to use. Red Skelton, yeah, that was a racist. He appeared in blackface more times than I can count. Frank Sinatra, in Ocean's 11, 1960. Yeah, well, no doubt the guy's a racist. Absolute racist. Probably had a hood and everything. Jimmy Stewart, probably, I mean, way before my time, but I think I've seen every movie Jimmy Stewart was in. Just phenomenal character actor. He appeared in blackface in 1940 in some movie called It's a Wonderful World. Not a Wonderful Life, Wonderful World. Elizabeth Taylor, real well-known racist. Elizabeth Taylor. In Young Toscanini. I'm sorry. Danny Thomas. You know, now there's a racist. St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Yeah, that's a racist. He appeared in blackface. Elizabeth Taylor, as I said, Danny Thomas, Arthur Tracy, Spencer Tracy, Dante's Inferno, Fred Travalena impersonating Eddie Murphy on Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. Of course, he was killed shortly thereafter. No, he wasn't killed. I don't know. Impersonated Michael Jackson at the 1992 MTV Video Music Awards. Now, 1992 from 2019. Have we lost our ever-loving minds in that period of time? It was a joke. It was a joke. Obvious. Sophie Tucker. A lot of these people are old that, you know, I don't remember, but some of you may. Jim Varney, remember Ernest? Yeah, Ernest Goes to Africa, 1997, blackface. I had to be a racist. I had no idea there were so many racists. Well, it begs the larger question, does it not? I mean, we have become so hypersensitive, so free to be you and me, hug a tree, so, you know, I'm offended, but you just got out of bed. I know, but I'm still offended. Everybody's offended about something. You know, if Jesse, I'll tell you how you know this is working. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton still have a job. They're still relevant to some people, not many, but some. So in the year 2019, we just crossed over 2019, do we reach back like they're doing in Virginia with the governor, the lieutenant governor, the third in line. All these guys have got problems. They're Democrats. I just assume they hit the unemployment line as not. But the bigger question is, should I judge you on what you did 40 years ago by 2019 standards? Because standards change. Sensibilities change, certainly political correctness change. I'm not, well, you just a racist, Rick. No, I'm not. I'm asking what I think is a very serious societal question. All right, let's go to Christy in Keller. Christy, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Christy?
I'm great. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
So I'm listening to you kind of ran off different names. I've got a couple more names for you.
Okay.
John Wayans and Marlon.
I can barely hear you. Say again, Christy.
I've got a couple of other.
All right, let's do this. I'm going to put Christy on hold. She may be walking around the house or something. You know, our cell technology is so wonderful these days. John in Fort Worth. John, thank you for waiting. How you doing, John?
Good. I'll give you a name first. Fred Armisen, who did the Better Obama on Saturday Night Live. That was 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
He did the Better Obama. Come on, he had it down. Okay, but then they realized, no, he's white, so let's go get the black guy to do it, which wasn't as funny. Now, with all this hypersensitivity and everybody being offended, and I did read the Constitution last night, there's nothing in there about protections of being offended. If we're going to make this retroactive from, I guess, today, apparently, or this last week from the guys in Virginia, does that mean you and I are going to have to sneak around in the middle of the night in a clandestine meeting to see Blazing Saddles from 1974? Or is everybody going to get pissed off because that movie gets re-released?
I think we ought to have a good. You know what I think? I think it would be cleansing for society. I think it would be cleansing for the country. Let's just have a good old-fashioned book burning and throw in some movie reels at the same time. How about that?
I mean, that's what it sounds like. And you can go back to the first or second year of Saturday Night Live. There is a skit with Richard Pryor and Chevy Chase. Can't say the words now. It was funny. You'd laugh. You do it now, there would be arrests. People are going to jail for what Chevy Chase would say to Richard Pryor. Look it up. It's fascinating to what we're at now. Now, I'll end it with this. I am not participating with the hypersensitivity. If I see Blazing Saddles, I will log in. I'm going to laugh because it's still funny. It holds up today.
Well, it's only funny because you don't have any sensitivity to your fellow man.
Well, all right. Well, that's the beauty of being me.
There you go. He's right. He's absolutely right. I mean, humor changes over the years, does it not? Of course it does. Sensibilities change over the years. Political correctness changes over the years. I mean, I know people that just absolutely love the Three Stooges. I don't get it. I mean, if you hit somebody in the head with an anvil, they're not getting back up. I see. I'm too. What's the word I'm looking? Anal? Maybe, I don't know. That kind of goofball humor just doesn't do it for me. You know, slapping each other, hitting them in the head with a hammer. All that. It just it's not funny to me. But that's what. There's nothing in the Constitution, as he says, that gives you the right to not be offended. Nothing. And there's nothing in any document that I'm aware of that says all of us have to be exactly the same. It just doesn't exist. Let's try Christy and Keller again. Christy, do we have a better connection?
Can you hear me now?
I got you perfect.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
You were talking about different names earlier, and I've got a couple of other names for you. I've got Sean Wayans and Marlon Wayans. Came out in a 2002 movie called White Chicks. They did Whiteface. Do you remember that movie?
I remember the guys. I don't remember the movie. Well, I could say yes, but I don't really remember, no.
Well, I just invite the Democrats, since they've always spoke from the platform of racism, to step fully onto the platform and represent both sides.
You know, in the state of Virginia, I don't know what, I don't know. The governor did something stupid when he was a college kid. Can any of us say we never did anything dumb in college? The other guy's sexual assault, that's a whole different deal. That's not part of this discussion. Lieutenant Governor, That's a whole different deal. Consensual kissing quickly turned into sexual assault. Now he's lawyered up. The third guy in line, you keep passing the baton in Virginia. Now he says he appeared in blackface. Look, I'm not nearly as concerned about people that dress up in blackface and, for a skit to emulate, some entertainer like Michael Jackson or what have you, as I am about these idiots meeting in somebody's garage, cleaning their guns, and watching Roadhouse. I mean, I'm just, I'm not as nearly concerned with that. And I don't think most people should be.
Well, seeing that it's the complete opposite of the normal racism and, where it comes from with the black place and all that, I can't help but laugh. I mean, I thought the movie was hilarious, and I tried to be offended by it, but I can't be. So
I tried to be offended, but I couldn't. That's a great line. I love that.
Well, I couldn't be offended because I thought it was funny. How simple of a mind must we all have if we take offense to certain things? Now, I am by no means coming to the defense of that Democrat. Let me be clear. But saying it from the other side and being devil's advocate, I thought White Chicks was hilarious, even though it was all about being this white face, Yeah,
I got to look that one up. The best line, I tried to be offended, and I just couldn't. I love that. Yep. Please don't be a stranger, Christy. Thank you for the call. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. When we come back, I'll have a few more people that have appeared in blackface. What should we do? Should we a class action suit against their estates if they passed? Maybe, send their kids and grandkids to the poorhouse. Your grandfather appeared in blackface. Give me everything you own. 2:46 the time. Yes. Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane. She appeared in blackface. Actually, quite a few times. She went through a blackface performing stint. Yeah? Keenan Wynn, Finian's Rainbow, kind of a big movie. Jane Wyatt. Flip Wilson. I know, he's black, right? Yeah. In the 1980 TV special Uptown, a tribute to the Apollo Theater. So that was all about racism, right? Flip Wilson. And, of course, if you're a country aficionado, way before my time, but Hank Williams Sr., Bob Wills, and I can hear the Democrats, well, those are country guys. They're probably racist anyway. James Whitmore. I remember this movie. It was in 1964. I probably saw it in the 70s. James Whitmore in Black Like Me. Remember that? Who else? Mae West, obviously, before my time. Clifton Webb. Now, here's one person that I would have never guessed had performed in blackface. Okay, give me your guess. Give me your guess. Who do you think it was? No idea? No idea? Lee, you got a guess? The last person you would imagine that performed in blackface. John Wayne. John Wayne in 1942, a movie called The Spoilers. Ethel Waters, it just goes on and on and on. So are we to judge all of these people in 2019 for something they did back in the 40s or 50s? If you want to say, well, I don't think we ought to do that anymore, it makes perfect sense to me. But don't sit here like judge, jury, and executioner. Well, they should have never done that. Yes, amen. They'll burn forever in the lake of fire. Oh, just stop, will you? Jim in Rowlett. Jim, thanks for waiting. Hi.
No problem. Listen, there is something in the Constitution that's relevant here, and that's called post facto laws, stating that you can't make a law that makes something illegal after it's already been done.
After the fact, right.
After the fact. Now, going blackface is not against the law, at least at this point in time. But, I mean, it's kind of even 230 years ago, our founding fathers realized that you shouldn't punish people for things that were okay at the time and just say, well, later on, you're going to change your rules. That's the Democrats' way of life, not the Republicans and conservatives. And if it was, the Mark Twain would be in jail, or they'd do something with him.
Yeah, I want to burn every copy of Huckleberry Finn I can find.
There you go. I mean, even the Disney's thing, I think they've done something to the old original Huckleberry Finn movie. And on top of that, what about, what I thought was hilarious during the 50s, the Amos and Andy show. I mean, somehow that's racist. I mean, that showed blacks in a really good light for the time. It's a whole different story now, but I mean, come on. Y'all need, the Democrats, you need to grow up.
Yeah, it just, and people do this a lot. That's how those poverty pimps like Sharpton and Jackson stay relevant. They chase racism under every rock they can find. They've already weighed in on the Virginia governor thing. What are they going to add to this? Were they there 40 years ago at the college? I doubt it. It just doesn't make any sense. Can you rightfully judge a person or their behavior 40 years ago or more? Now, I'm not talking about sexual assault. That's a whole different deal. I'm talking about something like blackface or verbiage at the time. We all go... Society is not static, as I said. It progresses. It evolves. It hopefully becomes more intelligent. Here lately, you would think just the contrary. But at the end of the day, as much as I'd like these guys, all of you, go, share the want ads, find another job. I mean, can you rightfully sit here in 2019? Oh, my God. And I love the apologies. Oh, I feel so bad for what I did. No, you don't. You were a stupid 30-year-old kid in med school. You don't know what was going on. You feel bad now by today's standards. Say what you mean. It's like Elizabeth Warren. I'm not really an Indian, but I play one in the Senate. It's like her apology. Well, I misspoke when it came to tribal citizenship. This has nothing to do with tribal anything. This has to do with maybe your mom told you were an Indian, her mom told her, you got it wrong, you put it on a card when you applied to med school or law school. You just got it wrong. That's all. So stop apologizing for it. All right, let's go to Brandon in Denton, Texas. Brandon, how you doing?
Oh, sorry, I'm all right. How about yourself?
Good.
I'd like to weigh in on your question there, primarily as a 32-year-old black man whose father grew up in those times. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but no, you shouldn't judge. I mean, let's look at the picture. You're upset at a 3x5 a yearbook picture, and I'm sorry. It's blackface standing by the KKK. Obviously, they're at some kind of party. And if it's a dress-up party, then let's get rid of all your actors who dress up to play a part.
Did you hear the Danny Thomas, probably the least racist guy I can think of with St. Jude's Children's Hospital and all he appeared in blackface. At the time, I guess they thought that was funny. I don't see any humor in it. But I also don't see the KKK marching down Main Street.
No, and you know, I think it was about a year and a half ago, you asked the question of why do blacks think of most white people as the white devil? It's simply because nobody's sitting down and discussing and talking about those hard times and those difficult situations. That was a part of the time. That's just how it was.
That's why
everybody's
Brandon. That's why it's called history. History,
exactly. And
generally speaking, when you look at historical fact, it's something that was once done but is done no longer. I mean, there may be traditional things like at Thanksgiving at your house or wherever, but when I look at this, I'll tell you how I know that humor has somehow evolved. A lot of these people I told you appeared in blackface. They were black. And so evidently there was some humor attached to dressing up in blackface. I think probably, even though, I wasn't, I was a little bitty kid when he was at his zenith, I think probably the most talented man ever in entertainment. He was an actor. He was a singer. He was a dancer. He was a comedian. He could do anything. Was Sammy Davis Jr. Now, Sammy Davis Jr. appeared in blackface numerous times. Why? Because evidently it was funny at the time. It wasn't racist.
And to me, it maybe I have an advantage, like I said, because my father grew up in those times, and you get told about what was. But to me, everybody goes crazy. You go back to Paula Deen. Oh, she said this. Well, that's what she grew up in.
Right.
And some people are hard to change. That him dressing up in blackface at that time doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, then get rid of all the actors, get rid of Halloween.
Get rid of Halloween, exactly, yeah. I like that.
But what really bothers me is you will get mad today at something I do believe they said was in 84 or whatever it was. You'll get mad at a 3x5 picture. And given I haven't seen the video, but the newest news is all the kids doing all the racial slurs on the school bus and everything else. You'll turn right around and go, oh, well, they're just, they're privileged and they don't know what they're doing. How is it that a picture is going to drive you up the wall?
I agree with you. Yeah, I know exactly the case you're talking about. You got a bunch of college kids on a bus, and they're loosely chanting a song. It sounds like a song, and it's got racial slurs in it. If you're doing that today in 2019, you know better. You know that's wrong. But if they were all doing it 40, 50 years ago, you really can't, not that it was right by today's standard, but you can't be doing that kind of stuff in 2019. You know that that's wrong, right? Okay, did I lose him? I guess I did. Wait a minute, is he still there? Hang on a second. Are you with me? Brandon. Okay. We don't have him, guys. All right. Well, I got a break anyway. Brandon, good call. Please don't be a stranger. 2:56 the time. I'm quite serious. In the state of Virginia, that sound you can barely hear. Listen, you can barely hear it. That low rumble, do you hear it? Off to the east, do you hear that? That's the Democratic Party imploding on itself in the state of Virginia.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 3:05 the time. Gonna have a surprise for you. Clayton Neville is headed down to, actually, I think Clayton's going to Beto's house in El Paso. I'll tell you about that in just a second. I know the lines are full. I promise you get your day in the court of public opinion. But I had to tell you this. Queen Pelosi, she said, there will not be another government shutdown. Do you hear me? I mean, like a really upset mom talking to her petulant children. I'm not making it up. Here's Pelosi. There will be no government shutdown. Period. Do you hear me? Do you hear what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, we had some microphones set up when Nancy came out today, and very forcefully banging the podium. There will be no government shutdown. Well, as a matter of fact, here she is right here. It's just a little bit of what she had to say. Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't sound like her. Okay, well, you get the idea. She's giving you your marching orders. She is saying that there will probably be... It didn't sound like her at all. She had a cold, perhaps. She said there's not going to be another government shutdown. I mean, what do we got? Until the 15th. Today's the 7th. We got a week. There's not going to be another government shutdown. No, it's not going to happen. She said Trump and the Republicans will avoid another shutdown out of fear. They're fearful of any further political damage. Yeah, I just saw Trump on one of my monitors. He looks scared to death, Nancy. The man is shaking, literally shaking in his boots. Pelosi said, I have a club. I have a club that I started. It's called the Too Hot to Handle Club. And this is a too hot to handle issue. Yeah, she's digging now. She is convinced this bipartisan panel of lawmakers negotiating on border security, it's the border wall, is going to reach an agreement before the funding deadline to avert another shutdown. Well, Nancy, I would caution you. I think this is a cautionary tale. You don't want to get too far ahead of your skis. You know, as a guy that skied every day for 20 years, I can tell you, you don't want to get too far out over those skis, especially on a black diamond run, because you're going to crash. All right? And I think this is where she is. She's defending the House Intelligence Committee chairman, Adam Schiff. Less than 24 hours after what just about everybody said was one of the most moving State of the Union speeches. What's this toolbox doing? We are announcing today a full and thorough, sweeping investigation of the president's tax returns. Yeah, that's what every American is worried about. Hey, honey, I'm getting ready to go to work. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get your coffee. I'm so concerned about the president's tax returns. After Trump called him a partisan hack who's just trying to build a name for himself, the president also accused Schiff of engaging in unlimited presidential harassment. Man, if anybody has a right to say presidential harassment, it's got to be Donald Trump. All right, let me get to your calls. Craig in DeSoto. Craig, how you doing?
Good, Rex. The pleasure to talk to you. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, sir.
I'm trying to, I guess we'll stick to the subject at hand. But
anything you want to talk about is fine.
Oh, good grief. The Democrats give us thousands of reasons to talk about things. But my point was that, this blackface issue. Well, first of all, who died and left black people so important that they're the only ones that can be offended about any of these things? There's people who have played Asians, people who have played Indians, people who have played Native Americans. This is all about getting into character. And most of the time, an old fellow, for Pete's sake. So most of this is not malicious, and it's only going to stop when people finally stand up. And you've made this point: stand up and don't take it. Don't stand there and apologize for something that doesn't require one. People have to learn to push back on this stuff because they've played this race card to the point of ridiculous to the sublime. They're grasping at straws, and it's all they have left is to play the race card.
Well, Democrats will use anything under the sun that may or may not offend someone. The only people talking about blackface that I can see are these hypersensitive, super sensitive. Oh my God, I'm such a victim. I don't see black people going nuts unless you are talking about Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and a handful of these self-appointed spokespeople for an entire race. But those guys are poverty pimps. They're the new slave masses of the 21st century. I had somebody say, why do you call them slave masters? Because what did slave masters do? They took away your hope. You know, that's the worst thing you can take away from a man or a woman is hope, or a child. Hope. As long as you've got hope, you've got a direction you can go. You've got something to aspire to. And what did Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and, we've got some town clowns here in Dallas that do the same thing. You can't do it without me. Without my help, you'll never accomplish anything. You know, the white man keeping you down, that whole nonsensical thing. Most people are too smart for that now. They realize that we've passed laws. They realize that, yes, we've legislated human behavior to a certain extent by saying if you do this, this is going to happen. Consequence for action. You be the judge. You're never going to get rid of true racism. All of it. I mean, we've put a pretty good dent in it as a country, I think. Haven't we? Yeah, but you're never going to get rid of all racism 100% because some people refuse to be educated. And you can't shout racism down. You can only educate people out of it. Some people refuse to be educated. Some people want to be dumb as a stump their entire life and let the government raise them. That's what the government wants, so that's what they're going to do. So, eradicating racism in totality is not a realistic expectation. So forget about it. But blackface, I just went through, 40 different entertainers. You recognize the names of all of them. Jimmy Stewart, for crying out loud. Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Do I think those people are somehow connected to the KKK? No, I don't. I think that it was their feeble attempt at trying to get a laugh, trying to get comedy. But the question was, do we judge everything that has come before us by 2019 standards? Here's the catch. We do for ourselves today. We can't revert and say, okay, I'm going to hold you to a 2019 standard in 1940 or 1950. That's absurd, and it's stupid. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's check your afternoon drive. You want to do that? All right. All the people in blackface get all the way over to the first lane. All right. Those not in blackface, the passing lane is now open.
.com.
Is there any doubt whatsoever what the Democrats are about in 2019? Well, I don't think so. Not after one of the most moving, impactful State of the Union speeches by a guy that just about everybody in D.C. hates, with a visceral reaction at the mere mention of his name. Less than 24 hours later, you got Schiff. Democrat out of California. We need to take a look at tax returns. We need a broad, expansive investigation. I mean, that's all they can do is investigate. Trump, actually, this is what Pelosi said today about Trump. When Trump makes an assault on Mr. Schiff and congressional responsibility for oversight, he is making an assault on the Constitution of the United States. Almost fell out of my chair. Here's a Democrat trying to take me to school on the importance of the Constitution, the separation of powers, co-equal branches of government. We honor the institution in which we serve. I hope he would honor it too. Man, I wouldn't give you a plug nickel for any one of them. I just wouldn't. I mean, individually, they may be nice, taking blankets to the cold, food to the hungry, shelter to the homeless. But as far as political entities, they are the worst possible thing for this country. And I'll tell you why. Coming up just after 3:30, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Say it with me. It's kind of fun. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yes. Her new Green Deal, which is supposed to make America great again. Let's go to Gary in Mansfield. Gary, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Gary?
Hey, how are you? You know, you're talking about how the culture's changed. About 2 years ago, they had a showing of Blazing Saddles, and I went and watched it.
Right.
And wow, you could never, ever make that movie today. Ever.
Wait a second. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Gary, because I'm going to ask you some specific questions. You got Blazing Saddles. You know what I saw the other night, Gary? I saw, you remember Archie Bunker, All in the Family?
Yeah.
There is no way on planet Earth that TV sitcom could be played today. Everybody'd end up in jail.
Well, you know what's so interesting about Blazing Saddles? Is they were making fun of racism. But it was interesting because this town, Clavon Little, I don't remember, but they were getting a new sheriff, and they thought they're getting a white sheriff. Well, he's coming riding down the road. He's a black sheriff, right?
Right.
And they're playing all the music, and then when they see him, the music stops. But what was awesome about the movie was they were so racist toward Clavon Little, but he won them over. And they went away from the racism. He became the hero at the very end. It was really and truly. I mean, it was like, it made fun of racism, but he redeemed the people, because the more racism they threw at him, the more he smiled, and the more that he won them over.
Yeah, but see, Gary, that would never happen today, because they would never allow that mentality to go that long. Today, if there's even a whisper of racism, shut it down, file a lawsuit, go to Human Resources. Right. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got to be a victim today.
Oh, absolutely. But, when Mel Brooks made the movie, it really was a redemptive movie, I think, toward the end. It really was. But, I think one one mistake we make in this country is we think racism only goes one way. And we're all humans, right? We're all fallen. And what I'm saying is that whatever race you are, you have the potential of either having some or a lot of racism in you, and I think we're losing out a little bit. And I'll give you
no. What you're saying is black people can be racist too, and that's absolutely true.
Well, yeah, and you know, I'll give you an example of how the media doesn't cover it. In South Africa right now, you know, they had apartheid. Now they've got this socialist, communist, whatever you want to call them. But anyway, they've slaughtered hundreds and thousands of white farmers.
Yep.
And what's happening is the news media wants to cover a black backface. I get that, but by the same token, if they're really looking for racism, I would think if you went to when they're trying to wipe the white race out of South Africa and move them out and steal all their land, I would think that should get at least a little bit of attention.
Won't. I have a very good friend. Been a friend for 30 years. His parents became very wealthy. They owned paper mills in South Africa. They were taken to school by armed guards to keep from being kidnapped or shot and killed. Right. The stories he tells are just unbelievable. And you can't, even if you archived it, you couldn't find it. Here's the truth. Are you ready for the truth? If you want to see racism as it exists in 2019, all you've got to do, if you want to see racism, all you've got to do is follow Jesse Jackson around for a day. Yeah, here we go. 3:33 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion, your voice, your opinion, and sometimes your attitude on the issues of the day. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I realize the lines are full. When you hear someone drop off, you can jump in. But I got to bring, and if you're on hold about Virginia, or what used to be Virginia, we'll take your call. But it may be the most far-reaching goofball proposal ever to be considered in Congress. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. No, say it with me. I want to get this right. Ready?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
We're supposed to do it together. That's how it works. Alexandria. Okay, so good.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for playing along. She unveiled her Green New Deal. I mean, who could be against a New Deal that's green, right? She unveiled it today. It's a government-led overhaul of virtually every single aspect of American life that would guarantee a host of taxpayer-covered benefits for all and phase out. We need to phase out those fossil fuels. We don't need those dead dinosaurs anymore. Along the way, she has an office now. She had a bar about 6 months ago. Now she's got an office in Congress. Her office says the plan would aim to make air travel obsolete. Don't need no stinking planes. Air travel's obsolete. Upgrade or replace every building in America to ensure energy efficiency and give economic security to those that just won't work. No, they're not hurt. They're not infirm. They're not diseased. They don't want to get out of bed. Okay, don't worry about it. Today is the day that we truly embark on a comprehensive agenda of economic, social, and racial. You got to get the race thing in there, don't you? Yeah, you have to get the race. You know, a lot of people don't realize Ocasio-Cortez, she's been around for a while, and she's had some pretty groundbreaking ideas. Now, you may not remember, but she was asked at one point, why are Americans so dumb? Why can't we even locate, different cities and different areas like that? Why? Do you remember that? I mean, surely you do.
Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
Here's Ocasio.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa, and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries.
Get them a map.
So we will be able to build up our future.
Yeah, there you go. It's not supposed to make sense. Nothing the woman says makes sense. Well, I believe that we need to get South Africa maps. No, I'm kidding. That wasn't her. That was, what's her name? At the beauty pageant. Ocasio-Cortez. I don't think she's any danger of making it to a beauty pageant. But, yeah, it's because Americans don't have maps. You don't have maps. It's not your fault. This woman is just as goofy as she can possibly be. And the Democrats are welcoming her with open arms. A massive package of big government proposal paid for by you. Health care for all. That's right. Let me see what I got in the bag for you. Health care for everybody. Woo! Even your reindeer. That's what else? Yeah. Health care for all. Make airlines obsolete. And have a guaranteed income even for those who won't, not can't, but won't work. All of this quickly picked up by the backing of major 2020 Democrat presidential hopefuls. Why? Why? Why would they do this? Why would they hitch their wagon to this nonsense? Because they believe Americans are just that stupid. Senator Kamala Harris out of California, Elizabeth Warren out of Massachusetts, Corey, I don't know white people, Booker. I mean, they're all out there, and they're all saying, hey, I'm in. I'm all in. And they co-sponsored this resolution. They co-sponsored it. Our history is a testimony to the achievement of what some think is impossible. We must take hold. That sounds a little bit like, what's his name, from Great Britain, doesn't Churchill? Yeah. We must take bold action now. Of course, that's Cory Booker. The resolution itself is non-binding, but it's the first time any policy proposal has been formally outlined in Congress. Get rid of all air travel, get rid of all fossil fuels, Medicare for all, incomes to those people that won't work. They could if they wanted to. They just don't want to. Look, everybody on the other side of my glass in here is celebrating. All right, settle down, guys. Kathy in Grapevine. Kathy, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Kathy?
I'm doing great, Rick. It's such a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for talking about this blackface stuff. I've been thinking about this for days. It's making me crazy. I was remembering the very famous movie Holiday Inn. It's a Christmas movie. You can still get it all the time. With
I remember the title, but I don't remember the movie.
Bing Crosby and Marjorie Reynolds did blackface. And it was the story was all about, actually, most of the music was written by Irving Berlin, who's Jewish. But it was all the different holidays and how this one place was open only on holidays. And so this particular one they did for Abraham Lincoln's birthday. But they got all dressed up and black-faced and everything. And it wasn't really so much to be funny. In a way, it was to honor these people of color. And of course, that's probably totally misunderstood today. But I got it, made sense to me.
Well, here's
another one I wanted to mention. Oh, go ahead.
What I was going to say was, here's the thing. It doesn't matter what you say in the year 2019. We are so politically correct, free to be you and me, hug a tree, hypersensitive. I was a victim before I even got out of the bed and stepped on the dog. Somehow, some way, I'm going to be a victim before I finish my first cup of coffee. That's the world in which we live.
You're right. Can I mention another one?
Sure.
That I was thinking of. My mother is 95.
Oh, Lord.
She's white as white can be, and she's a good Christian lady. But back in the 60s, she and her church lady friends were doing this thing for their Women's Missionary League, and it was to raise money for our missionaries in Africa and the missions they were doing.
Right.
And so they all got dressed up in blackface. I remember she took a cork, like a wine bottle, and lit it and made it charred, and that's what they put on their faces and their bodies. And they put their hair up under turbans.
Now, was that before or after the Klan meeting that day?
Yeah, right.
You see, that's what I'm saying. In 2019, Mom's a Klansman. I mean, that can only be it. There can be no other reason under the sun. It's not endearing, trying to help for a charity. They'd never let it go that far. Never let it go that far. What's that? A white person in a blackface? Shoot him!
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
Yeah, there you go. That Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a genius. All you have to do to make things better in this country is get everybody a map. That's all you got to do. Glenn in Dallas. Glenn, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Glenn?
Hey, what's going on, Rick? Hey, it's my first time calling in, and usually I'm listening this time of the day, and I pick you over Hannity, so that says a lot.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I could barely hear you.
I said this is my first time calling in.
Oh, good.
I usually listen to your show, and I usually pick it over Hannity, so that says a lot.
I'll let him know. We're friends. Thank you.
Hey, but it's something funny. You were talking about the Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
About a few months back, Archie Bunker was on TV, and I said to my buddy, I can't believe that they could still air this, yet they took the Dukes of Hazzard off because of the Confederate flag. You know?
Which Archie, Archie went through
the real racist one.
Yeah, that's the very beginning with Meathead and Gloria and all that.
Well, it's funny because the one I was watching is where he said those
raccoon.
Yeah, the last part of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're just repeating something you heard on television, right? Yeah, okay. That's right.
He said now we got them coons that moved in down the street. And I was like, they say this on TV?
Well, do you remember the very first bunkmate, I guess, MASH, wildly popular show, and of course there was Hawkeye and BJ. The very first roommate they had before Frank Burns, before whoever the other guy was. Do you remember their very first bunkmate?
No, I'm not really, like, that's more my mom and dad's time.
I thought that was great. And, of course, then it went to Frank Burns and then Howard, I think, and all the rest. I got kind of tired of it after a while. But, on MASH, the very first roommate of Hawkeye and BJ was a black guy named Spearchucker. Today, whoever wrote that into the script would be under the jail.
Yeah. Well, and another funny thing, too, is everybody's going on and on about this blackface, this and that. The funny thing about this all is this all got started because back in the day, someone had rights that somebody else didn't, or somebody else was mistreated. But now today, we're going on and on about blackface, but nobody's saying a thing about Nick Cannon going whiteface for his new album.
Yeah, somebody emailed me that, I don't know, yesterday or the day before, and I thought to myself, well, there are those, and I'll tell you a story very quickly. Back in the late 90s, I was in Dallas. I was a talk show host. I did radio and television at that time, but I was on another station, and there was a big blow-up about something that had to do with racism. Of course, it's part and parcel of talk radio. You can't get through a year without talking about race. And the DISD school superintendent was a woman, a black woman. And she let me, I'm not breaking a confidence because she didn't tell me it was off the record. She told me in letter form, I don't know who you think you are, or something to that effect. But obviously you're not very educated because black people cannot be racist.
Yeah, I heard that before, too. Makes no sense.
I've had Jesse Jackson in studio more times than I can count, and when he's not hitting on my producers, he will tell you, you have white privilege because of the color of your skin, even though you were brought up in a boys' ranch and out on your own at 15 and a half. It doesn't matter. You still have white privilege. I'm sorry. That's a real messed up way to look at the world.
Yeah. My white privilege has been working about 10 to 12 hours a day for my entire life.
And you're privileged to have the work.
Yep.
Hey, listen, Glenn is a first-time caller. Did a great job. Don't be a stranger. Thank you so much. Let's go to Jamie. Jamie in Hickory Creek. Jamie, how you doing?
Hanging in there. How you doing, Rick?
Good.
Hey, you're forgetting the key part here about this whole blackface thing.
Probably.
The key thing is it was never an issue until what started in Virginia when it came out. Now suddenly it's a big issue and a big
But you're talking about the Virginia governor, lieutenant governor, whoever's third in line. I mean, every one of their elected officials has got something that's going to keep them from going forward. They might as well just clean house, right?
Yeah. I mean, the unfortunate part for them is that the fourth in line turns out to be a Republican.
I look at this, and as much, and I mean this sincerely, Jamie, as much as I'd like to see these goofball Democrats, hit the road and be replaced with somebody more moderate or maybe a Republican, what have you, the bigger picture begs a question that must be answered. In 2019, do I have the right to judge someone and their behavior 40, 50 years ago when obviously society was different?
Yeah. Well, also the other question to ask, too, is does that mean every mechanic out there, because they get oil and grease and everything on their face, that they're now racist, too?
Man, you're digging to be offended there. No. No, the blackface thing, in this current crop of elected officials, these non-representing representatives, these leaderless leaders, they are looking for everything, Jamie, they can find that may be offensive to one person or another person. Forget doing anything that might be in their job description that benefits the American people and the country itself. Let's just get everybody pissed off at everybody else, and I'll take a side that I think has more people on it, and I'll get their votes. That's where we are. I mean, truly, that's where I just gave you a laundry list of people that appeared in blackface. John Wayne, is he a racist? Jimmy Stewart, is he a racist? Ernest, dumb movies, is he a racist? Sophia Loren, she appeared in black. Is she a racist? I mean, it goes down the list. One of the most incredible, possibly, I don't know, I'm not in that sphere, but who I consider to be probably the best entertainer of all time, sings, dances, acts, and a great actor. Not fantastic, but he's a really good actor. A musician. He does everything. Sammy Davis Jr. He appeared in blackface more times than I can count. Why? Well, evidently at that time, back in the 50s and 60s, there was an element of humor that went along with it. I don't get it. But obviously, if a black guy, Flip Wilson, there's another one. If they're doing something in blackface when they're already black, what, are you not black enough? No, there was some humorous concept that I don't understand. So as much as I'd like to see the Virginia governor and lieutenant governor and so on down the line out of business, I think the bigger question should be answered first.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820, WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, here we go. 4:04 the time. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Oh, this is Virginia blackface scandals. It's all over the news. Okay. All right. Something a little more substantive. Our own Clayton Neville, WBAP's Clayton Neville, will be leaving the WBAP newsroom I think Sunday, and he'll be in El Paso. El Paso, you know, Beto's home. He'll be there Monday and Tuesday for the president's rally in El Paso. Have you heard about this? Going to be a big rally in El Paso. You know, it's not too dangerous now that they've got a wall up there. And we'll be doing some interviews during the show, try to take you there live if we can, and should be a good time. In the meantime, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has lost her ever-loving mind. But she doesn't know it. She doesn't know it. She wants to get rid of air travel completely, get rid of all fossil fuels. And a bunch of Democrats have signed on to this. I'm not making this up. She wants to renovate every building in the United States to be more energy efficient. Hey, I'm not against, being energy efficient, but the new Green Deal is probably not the way it's going to get done. Economic security for all who are unable or, here's the or, unwilling to work. No, I don't want to go to work. I want to watch The Price is Right. Okay, well, you just sat there. We'll send you a check. What constitutes economic security isn't really clear, but the plan does call for programs including a federal job guarantee. The federal government will now guarantee you a job, universal health care for all, affordable, safe, and adequate housing for all, whether you can afford it or not. It's a net goal of net zero rather than zero emissions in 10 years. Air travel will become non-existent. Totally unnecessary, because we'll have trains crisscrossing the nation. Yeah, nothing like regressing 50 years, right? This is the new media darling for the Democrats. Let's go to Chelsea in Weatherford. Chelsea, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Chelsea?
Good. How are you, Rick?
I'm well, thank you.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I've talked to you 3 separate occasions and have absolutely enjoyed it. So I just wanted to call in. No problem. This whole political correctness has been just astounding and has been going this way for many, many years. But I'm 28 years old, and about 5 years ago, I heard something from my pastor that just really hit me. And it was that we get to choose when we pick up an offense. And it's just blown my mind that somebody can say something to me, and it's my choice to get offended. I can let it go, and I can just brush it off and move on with my day, or I can choose to hold on to it. And it's kind of sad that these people who get so offended, they live in this state of just constant bitterness. And and then like you were talking about earlier, how they just suck the hope out of you. There's no hope to get up and go do anything or live your life in a positive way. And I'm hoping that maybe somebody hears this and realizes that, I get to choose to be offended or to let this go. No,
that's 100% right, Chelsea. And one thing to remember Now, I know you're 28, and this happened to you maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But one thing to remember at 28 years old moving forward, there is always a situation that will exist, or people that exist, that are willing to take the burden of responsibility away from you in return for control.
Yep.
It may be at a local level at the grocery store. Well, yeah, I'll cash that check without ID, but, it's going to cost you 2% more. Or it's a federal government. The federal government only can increase in size and scope by the number of people that are dependent on it. Like this Ocasio-Cortez. She wants to do away with airplanes because they emit too much CO2 or whatever. She wants to guarantee everyone a job. Probably a federal job. She wants to give everyone income, whether they work for it or not. Okay, well, now you have to ask yourself, nothing in this world is free. Nothing.
Nope.
So she must want something in return. What do you think she wants in return?
Absolute control.
Absolutely. You got it. And you need to share that message as much as you can. I mean, the Democrats are going after your peer group. They're going after it for
absolutely, and they're winning. My peer group just buy into this so quickly. It's very sad.
Well, they haven't learned because, unfortunately, the government's involved in public education as well. And certainly colleges and universities is where liberalism goes to live. But they are in the 2020 election. They are hoping, Chelsea, that you and your peer group buy into this free government, free health care, free place to stay, free minimum wage, free. There's a commercial on television. I can't remember what it is, but it's all about free.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It drives me nuts. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But you got to get the message out to your peer group. Nothing is free. You're going to pay for it some way, somehow, and probably giving up some of your freedoms is the first thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, my dad is 75 years old, and I remember on my 18th birthday, the first thing I did was register to vote. And when I asked all of my friends, they were like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I don't care. And I remember just being like, what is wrong with you?
Chelsea, very good call. Please, Chelsea, do not be a stranger. I want to hear from you. I want to hear how your peer group is moving toward the 2020 election. I mean, all of us have a part to play in this. You got to put the message out. Let the facts, let the statistics, let the facts, let that speak for you. Because Democrats will come at you with a tsunami wave of emotion. Stand firm. There's no substance there. It can't knock you over. Let it pass and continue with telling the truth. Well, I didn't realize this, but according to the Nielsen Company, they measure this kind of stuff. President Donald Trump's State of the Union address was seen by nearly 47 million people. Obviously an increase over his first speech last year. That's amazing. And it just... unfortunately, about 4 or 5 million viewers didn't stick around for Stacey Abrams' Democratic response. That was a hoot. I mean, that was a day at Six Flags for me. And what else? What else is going on? What has broken since we've been on the air? Oh yeah, that's right. Elizabeth Warren is still apologizing. Oh, I didn't mean to say I was an Indian. Shut up. We don't care. You're white as a sheet of copy paper. We pretty much knew you weren't a Native American to begin with. Anthony in Mansfield. Anthony, thank you for waiting. How you doing?
Thank you, sir. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you very much.
I deliver packages, and I listen to your show every day, and something that you've been hitting on with this blackface, and they say that, until you walk a mile in somebody's shoes, you don't know what they go through. There was a famous man here in Mansfield, I think his name was John Griffin, and this was back in the 60s, where he took and he wrote articles for the Fort Worth Morning News way back when, and he took pills to change his skin to a dark colored, and he traveled the South and wrote articles and stuff. And he was, you talking about famous black faces? He was a white guy that turned himself black and traveled and lived the life and walked a mile in their shoes and stuff. And I just thought I'd mention it and let you know there's somebody here from North Texas that actually did it.
Well, there was a movie, I listed the actor's name, I can't remember now, but it was called Black Like Me or something like that.
That's the book. That was the articles.
Oh, okay.
They put the articles together to make that movie.
Okay, well, there was a pretty famous actor. What was his name? I can't recall now.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but he played the part, and of course, he's a white guy. And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, you also have other black people. Flip Wilson, he appeared in blackface in the 80s.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it goes all the way back to Mae West and Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne and what's his name, Jim Varney, Ernest, the Ernest movies. Ernest, yes, Ernest Goes to Africa. I mean, just on and on and on. I don't think these people are racist.
They're not, and it's trying to take it from the entertainment to the racist. That's just the Democrats whining and crying about something else.
Well, yeah, they're looking for a reason to be offended. Oh, I can't believe that, Jack Benny appeared in blackface. Well, are we supposed to judge what Jack Benny did in the 40s by 2019 standards?
Absolutely not.
No.
And you got to remember, it's the inside what counts, not the outside.
Hey, amen to that. Good call. I appreciate it very much. Tim in Munster. Tim, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Tim?
Good afternoon. In this Ocasio-Cortez new Green Deal proposal, something very serious and very scary is laying here. We have seen this kind of complete reformation of economies before, and miraculously they had been done by raving communists. I think you may recall Mao had his little Great Leap Forward,
yep,
and Stalin had his 5-year plan, both of which led to famine and deaths of millions. And I'd like to remind the left that the farm economy runs on diesel.
Well,
period.
Yeah, you're not going to get... look, this is nothing, in my opinion. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and please, don't misunderstand. This is not a dig on bartenders. I love you all. But you go from being a bartender schlepping drinks, in a year later you're in Congress setting legislation. Come on. I mean, beyond the broad proposals in this, it's called the New Green Deal, you got to look at this. It's a socialist wish list. It would kill over 1 million jobs, disrupt global trade, cost the nation trillions upon trillions. You're not going to get rid of fossil fuels and airplanes in 10 years. You're not going to do it.
Well, you're not going to replace every single combine, every single tractor in the breadbasket of the world. The United States is the wheat supplier to a huge portion of the globe. If we don't produce wheat, there's going to be massive famine across the globe. This kind of thinking is just childish, wishful. It's not even. I know many bartenders who have more intellect than this. This woman has the intellect of a child. This is like talking to a third grader.
You're absolutely on point. I think a lot would change if you could take a crowbar and pry these elected officials out of D.C., bring them to the Midwest. You know, as a kid, I bucked hay, I cut wheat. Bring them to those areas. This is where your food comes from. Yeah, you may think it comes from your freezer in Upper Manhattan. And you have your groceries delivered, but this is where it starts. You know, take them to see the wheat fields. Take them to see, the flyover states where their beef is grown. Where, oh, no, I don't want to eat anything with a face. Well, you do every day, and this is where it starts. It starts here. Then take those same empty-headed, vacuous morons to the border. Look, you don't think there's a crisis going on? Look around. Look around. This is real life. This is what happens in border states like Texas. This is what happens in flyover states like the wheat fields of Kansas and the beef industry in Texas. This is real life. Now go back and legislate with some working knowledge of what actually happens in this country. The problem is we've got too many of these morons wrapped in idiots that don't have a clue how we live. They don't have a clue where their food comes from. They don't have a clue about farms and ranches and people working the earth. And I don't mean to be sensational about that, but man, there is no better smell on planet Earth than driving down a highway early in the morning with the windows down in your car right next to a fresh plowed field. I don't care who you are, where you come from. That's the best smell on Earth. All right, 1-800-288-WBAP. What, too much? No, I'm serious. You know, pry those folks out of there. Put them on a bus. Bring them down. We'll give them a real tour of what life is really like. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah, you won't need a plane because she wants to rebuild the infrastructure using the rail system. That's great. That's great. Maybe that's excellent. Now, we'll just regress about 50 years, and we'll all be stuffed into a train station downtown someplace. And that guy is right. This is like trying to talk to a fifth grader. Fifth graders are smarter. You know, Luck, you want to make a big splash? Good for you. But you're not going to create jobs. You're not going to create an infrastructure investment. You know, you're not going to clean the water, healthy food, sustainable environment. You know, this is nothing more than a socialist wish list. We don't want any part of that. There we go. All you have to do is turn the mic on. Then people can hear you. 4:33 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. By the way, speaking of, that little red light goes on and everything. Speaking of being heard, I'll be at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo tomorrow. I think it's section 300 South or something like that. So come on by, say hello, right there on the corner. And we'll have some giveaways and some other things, but it'd be nice to see you. So if you're in Fort Worth for the Stock Show and Rodeo, come by, say hello, and love to see you. John in Wiley. John, thanks for waiting. How you doing, John?
Good, Rick. Thanks. Love your show.
Thank you.
Hey, are you sick of the face conversation yet?
No. No, I mean, it speaks to a much larger issue, which is this, everybody's a victim. We just can't get over ourselves. I don't know about you. I'm guessing, John, but you and me probably have enough on our plate that's put there by other people without going out and looking for something to put on it. I mean, I just don't get why people are their own worst enemy.
I don't know. And it just seems like, it's only behind an agenda when this stuff comes up. Do you remember the movie The Watermelon Man back in the 60s?
No.
Where it was a black guy there was a black actor who made himself white. And then what the movie was where he was a white guy that woke up one day and he was black. So like after the movie goes through, he takes the white off his face. Now he's a black guy, right?
Okay.
So he was doing whiteface. And I think it was a movie that was making like awareness, but it was humorous.
Yeah, I don't recall the movie, but I can see where you're going with that. Yeah.
And there were, if you look at almost every Western movie, those Indians were white guys that were just, painted copper or something. Most of them. Yeah,
but see, the Native American Indians. Generally don't put up a fuss. Well, I mean, if you live in Oklahoma, northern Texas, maybe some North Dakota, they put up a fuss every once in a while, Wounded Knee and all of that stuff. But generally, you're right. I mean, go back to the Bonanza. I mean, you got Italian guys with heavy dark tanning lotion. Hey, what? Hey. Hey, what are you talking about? That doesn't sound like any Indian I've ever heard, but that's what they do, but you don't hear about it.
Right, because it doesn't fit the narrative right now.
Exactly. It doesn't further the agenda. It doesn't push the narrative. We have to have people that are legitimately upset. I'm sorry. I can't buy into it. We don't have redlining. We don't have institutionalized racism. You know, people have gone nuts for the last 100 years trying to figure out, okay, how do we put everything on a level playing field? You know, the truth is, here's the truth, and people don't want to hear it. It's never going to be a level playing field. Never has been. Not with blacks or whites or Asians or Hispanics. I mean, you do what you have to do to get by. Nobody's going to come, even the socialists, nobody's going to come and say, okay, we're going to have equal opportunity for everybody. Partner, that doesn't exist. We have laws, but those laws are only as good as the chuckleheads that follow them.
You know what I think bothers me the most, Rick, is that as I go to businesses all over Dallas-Fort Worth daily, and I don't see racism. I don't see it. Like I talk with Latin Americans, you know, blacks, whites, you know, Germans, Vietnamese, Chinese, and there's none of this racism that you hear the Democrats talk about.
Oh, I know. I know. Well, the Democrats are using it. You just said it a moment ago. They use it as a narrative, as an agenda, hopefully to rally people around for votes.
That's absolutely right.
I mean, you got it spot on, man. That's what it is. I mean, if the racism was as bad as liberals would have you believe, we'd have cars burning in the streets and riots every night. They use it as an agenda. And you ever heard the old adage? And I'm going to get this wrong, I know, because I'm not good at remembering these kind of things. A people easily divided are more easy to manipulate. Does that make sense? In other words, if people are galvanized, it's pretty tough to manipulate them away from anything, their disposable income, their vote, whatever it is. But if you can divide these people along racial lines, ethnic lines, socioeconomic lines, if you can separate them, then you can attack them individually as groups and separate them from their vote. That's what the liberal platform is, always has been. Good call, John. Please don't be a stranger. Carol in Waxahachie. Carol, thank you for waiting. Hi.
Hi, Rick. Talking about movies, the one that I think is the craziest I've ever seen is The Jerk, where Steve Martin is born into a black family and he's white.
That's right. I forgot about that one.
He tries so hard to be like them and dance and sing, and he's just having a really hard time trying to do that. And I wondered what the black people thought. It seemed like they cared for him, just like he was part of the family.
Yeah, you know, that's a great example. You know, Steve Martin, that's an older movie. What is it, in the 80s maybe?
Yes.
Or maybe 78, 79. The Jerk, and he gets rich off these eyeglasses, and there's one part, I was born on a poor black. Do you remember that? I was born on a sharecropper house back in the. It was a satire, and there was nothing racist about that.
Right.
Well, I say that, and there's probably people out there yelling at me, well, you don't see anything racist because you are a racist. Okay, all right. You're not going to change those folks. Carol, very good call. Thank you so much. John in Austin, Texas. John, thank you for waiting. How you doing, John?
I'm good, Rick. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Hey, if Alexandra Vacuous Cortex thinks that we're going to elect socialism, she's out of her ever-loving mind.
Well, she's not the only one. Cory Booker has signed on to this thing. Elizabeth, I'm not really an Indian, Warren, she signed. They've co-sponsored this thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole cabal. Julian Castro, Elizabeth Warren, yeah, there's a bunch. But, Rick, let me say this to you, and I say this in all seriousness, and I'd hate to see this happen, but I would swear before your listeners and before my God, we will not have socialism in America. There will be blood in the streets of America before it happens. And I would hate to see it, but if you think we lost all the men that we did in Korea, and we lost all the men we did in Vietnam, and all the thousands of men that we lost in the Cold War, whose names we don't even know, because they were on missions so secret that they haven't been declassified. If you think we lost all that blood and treasure so that we can elect socialism, it's not going to happen. Now, you have listeners out there that are probably scoffing at that notion, but if they are scoffing past the graveyard, and it'll be a graveyard full of a lot of bodies.
Now, from your mouth to God's ear, I mean, this nation did not come easy. Anybody that looks around and thinks, oh, that was just a piece of cake. This nation, I'm talking from the founding fathers, through slavery, yes, through a civil war where we lost more men than ever before or since, this nation did not come about easy, and we're not going to go quietly into the night because some 29-year-old bartender has got a socialist wish list. 4:46 the time. Please tell me you have been enlightened. Based on the State of the Union speech, you may absolutely hate President Donald Trump. You can't hate what he's done for the people of this country. You can't hate what he's done for the country itself in the last 2 years. But if you want to hate the person, that's fine. Go ahead. But please tell me you've been enlightened by the Democrat response. I mean, it didn't take an hour. What's it, Van Jones over on CNN? I watched the State of the Union, then I watched Miss Abrams with the Democrat response. That was 20 minutes I'll never get back. But it was all one story after, just like Beto does. No stats, no foundation of truth, no facts, nothing. I've been to all 254 counties and blah, blah, blah. She was pretty much the same thing. My dad worked in the shipyard, had to walk to work because we only had one car. It was 30 miles uphill both ways, there and back. And then one day it rained, and my mom said, oh, no, what's happened to him? Let's get in the car and go see. Well, why the hell didn't you go get him to begin with? The whole thing was just a facade. It was just for the most goofy behavior you can think of. And then Van Jones, this pillar of wisdom on CNN. I think the whole thing was cookies and dog poop. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Cookies, which I like, dog poop, which not necessarily, no. What are you talking about? He couldn't come up with any. I heard of a story. Every Democrat, they can't come out with any substantive legislation. It's all, well, I met a guy one time who had 3 arms and he couldn't get what did Van Jones say? He said, I heard a story about a brave soldier and he was transgender and they're throwing him out of the army, and Trump didn't talk about that. Okay, well, I'm sure there's a lot of things he didn't talk about. What else you got? Well, he didn't talk about transgender. He didn't talk about DACA. He just made an offer on DACA. The Democrats refused. I don't want to talk about that. Please tell me you're enlightened. The curtain has been pulled back. You see how they make the sausage, and it's just a bunch of goofball agendas they're trying to throw out there to garner any vote they can in the 2020 election. Rhonda in Bedford. Rhonda, thank you for waiting. Hi.
Hey, Rick.
Hey.
Thanks for taking my call. That last caller, I didn't catch his name, but I was moved when he said we'll fight in the street, and I'd be right there beside him. But I don't think that's how it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to announce one day, hey, we're going to move to socialism. I think it's going to start with social programs when they put these 20-year-old kids on food stamps that don't want to work.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to sneakily get people dependent where they like the government handouts, and it's just going to move that direction. I think it's going to be much slower, and it scares me to death.
That's why it's incumbent. Rhonda, I don't know that you're too far off the mark. And that's why it's incumbent on everyone that's got a little bit of life experience, has a few benchmarks, some high water marks. You got to get the message out. There's nothing that's free. Somebody's going to pay for it.
Yep. And I'm hoping that Trump gets 76% approval when he runs in 2020. So
that would be nice. I mean, literally, and I'm not trying to be a shock jock or anything else. If Trump doesn't get reelected and one of these walking, talking agenda pieces ends up in the White House, we're done. We're sunk. You know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she and her ilk will be running the show. We don't need no stinking airplanes. They, put off too much CO2 and the polar bears are dying, and I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so we're going to go back to the rail system, and then I guess if that puts off too much, we can go back to horses, but then we've got, all that flatulence. What do we do about that? I don't know. Russ in Dallas. Russ, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Russ?
Doing great, Rick. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Hey, listen, I'm a long-time listener. I call you all the time, but I just wanted to pass on these leftists, what they're trying to do. They have no intention of trying to implement the end of air travel or the end of all of the oil consumption. What they're doing is they're desensitizing to you. They're desensitizing the public to where you are now so they can advance their cause a little bit. Everything they do is designed to move to the left and get people to understand that that's what they're trying to do. And if people understand that, we just have to hold tight. We can't let them basically trick us into thinking they're trying to get rid of airplanes. They're not trying to get rid of airplanes. They're trying to advance the liberal cause any way they can. Every little bit heads it in their direction. That's what I think they're doing.
Well, you're right when you say it's all about desensitizing. I can recall I took driver's ed in high school, and of course you go through the simulators, then you go drive around somebody's 1991 Impala, and everybody's okay, this is great. But then at the end of driver's ed, they show you all the films. I don't remember, what was it, Signal 13 and a few of the others. It's all highway patrol film footage of people in wrecks, just in the most gory presentation you can think of. Well, for the next 3 weeks, the safest place on planet Earth to drive is that high school. But you slowly become desensitized, and that's exactly what's going on politically. And so you're right in that regard. But as far as Ocasio-Cortez, she is absolutely serious. She wants to end all air traffic in the United States because it puts off, or we're depleting the ozone, and I don't know, polar bears are falling off ice shield, whatever. And you don't want to get me going on that because I think most of that's a cottage industry anyway. But yeah, she wants to end all air traffic. She wants to refurbish all the rail systems. She wants to aid those that can't. Or here's what I don't understand. I want to help those that can't or won't work with federal money. Well, it's taxpayer money. The government doesn't have any. Remember this. The government doesn't have a job, all right? They don't have a diamond mine as far as I know. There's no diamond mine under the White House. They don't have a job. They don't create income. The government gets money one of three ways. They either print it, you stand good for it, they borrow it from other countries, you end up paying it back, or they tax it directly out of your pocket. They don't have any money. They can't pay for anything. The government can't do anything for anyone without first taking it from someone else. And Ocasio-Cortez either doesn't know this or doesn't care. So when she says we want to aid, the government wants to aid those who can't work or who won't work. Well, by what rationale does that make any sense to anyone on the left or the right? All right, stick around. Man, I could go on for another couple hours one of those days, All right. I'll be back with you tomorrow at 2, live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. God's blessings on each and every one of you, whether we agree or not. That's always my priority, and I mean that sincerely. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Baking in the sun, don't quit till the job gets done. That's the only way I know. Don't stop till everything's gone. Straight ahead.